like Tristana's not the best, but she's at least you're playing a lot of one champion. That's the most important thing because muscle memory. Is this your first ranked season? Okay. Yep. So the first thing I noticed, and this is a really really big deal, probably heard this before, is that you're playing on lock screen, lock camera, and main thing with that is it's not the main reason why it's not good is because you should never be looking at yourself like as the main focus because you should know where you are because you're the one moving yourself. So in the lane, things you need to see are the creeps, and so really, really good players, they glance at the creeps, they absorb all the information, and they know how to CS it, depending on what they want to do in the lane, and then they look at their opponent and they watch their movement, because how their opponent moves, it means a lot of things. A lot of psychology to it at a high level, but like, basically you want to be looking at the CS and you want to be looking at the opponents rather than yourself, so the centered camera is a little bit impractical. And the only way you can really get out of that habit is just straight up forcing yourself to not play with it, and it really, really sucks for the first few games. I played to like level 20 with lock screen, so I didn't play with it as long, but as soon as I stopped doing that, it was like 10, 15, maybe 20 games. It was absolutely terrible. Um, so one small thing here is after you give the leash about like 125, I think. Um, yeah. Okay. So I'm at like 112 here. I just went back. So you're leashing red. Give the E. Okay, that's fine. This is really normal leash. You should walk. You can walk right, like through the tribush. Yeah, that's the normal route. The only danger is that some bot lanes, depending on how strong their level 1 is, and depending if they want to, will sit there and try to fight you level 1. Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of bot lanes that can do it if you actually get the jump, even if you have a worse level 1. Now, they don't have a very good level 1, so there's absolutely no reason to be afraid of that. But something you can do is just as you walk through it, just ward it, because if you see it a second early, your jungler's right there, they don't have the drop on you, that type of thing, so it's actually not bad, but... So you should be mainly just looking to shove to level 2. Do you know when you get level 2? So the first wave is 6 creeps. Every third wave is a cannon wave. So for level 2 in a solo lane, you kill the first wave, and then the first melee minion of the second wave will give you level 6, or sorry, level 2. Um, with bot lane, the XP is shared, so it's the third melee minion, the second. So it's good to be conscious of that because a lot of well, people that are aware will want to walk up and trade with you or all in you at level 2 because they'll have the level advantage. The level is worth about 500 to 600 gold. Yeah, just the armor it gives you, the AD, the attack speed. It gives every champion MR now, health. It's absolutely huge. So yeah, pushing to level 2 is very normal. Also knowing when you can't. So like when they're gonna get level 2 and just backing off. That's really good. You're at about 3 minutes. Your Braum has a good trade. So like this lane should be pretty much over. This is like super winnable. Just because of how you have an advantage in the early lane. You actually have like good click speed. A lot of people in bronze have like really really low EPM. So that's always good. You should just be trying to shove it to the tower because something Tristana can do, and this is not just Tristana. Like most of the concepts you need to know to get out of bronze, to get out of silver, are like universal things, and then like your champion mechanic. So obviously, if you don't know how your W works, it's gonna be a little bit difficult. But the main thing is like Caitlyn and Tristana and these champions with a ranged advantage can usually shove someone under their tower and punish them for it, while a champion like the Lucian who has 500 range can't, right? So when you're playing Tristana, you really want to be shoving, and it's really difficult not to because of the EAOE. So you basically want to shove into the tower. Also, you should take W usually at level 2. I didn't notice that, but usually it's E, then W, then Q. The only situation where it wouldn't be is if you're getting shoved under your tower. Then you can take Q level 2. Yeah, because the W won't really help you. It's really high cooldown and it's awkward, yeah. So it's not bad to be putting them under tower because you know, you can just E the tower, auto the tower a few times, back off so that you don't get tower aggro, and it will hit them, and it will hit the next creep wave as it comes in. So it's really good wave clear. It's a lot of tower damage. Your Sun is really good at taking the first tower because of it, and you get to do damage to them. So right here, Jhin pretty much needs to back. So the one thing is like if you, I can't really see because you're like if you weren't playing on lock camera, you'd be able to see his health. Yeah. So you don't really need to be afraid of Jhin at all. Hand back here. So yeah, you can back here. You can buy a pickaxe. So let's see. One thing is that people in lower elos, a lot of them don't really know what to buy. Yeah. So boots dagger. So the thing. So yeah, with like. This is so pretty much every ADC. Now some ADCs like Kog'Maw, very very centric around his W on hit. Pretty much every ADC, AD is the primary stat. 100%. It just gives you more damage per auto, and sometimes you're only trading one auto, so the attack speed isn't going to be as good. So basically, in the priority list, it goes AD, attack speed, and then crit. It's basically how stats are. So you should buy a pickaxe. Yes. The item you really want is BF Sword. So if like if the lane's just really really passive, stagnant, you're able to stay in lane till 1300, BF Sword is what you want. But yep. So you can do so like I would just recommend stick to one build. You know, don't complicate it with a lot of different builds. If you see different builds or different build orders or something like that that pros do or something, it's fine. You know, you can copy that because you know they usually know what they're doing. So at like, let's see what time is this. So about 6 minutes, just before 6 minutes, you kind of walk in and take a lot of damage. Was there like did you have like something? Let's see. So I'm going back to like 550 starts. So the thing about this. Yep. So basically, on Tristana, unless you're immediately going to get the kill, or you get an immediate reward out of it or something, or it's 100%, you never really use your W. It's the same thing with flashing in. Yeah, it's like don't use your W to engage, especially not in 5v5, especially not later in the game, because the W, like what you get for the W, is really low. Now, if this is coordinated, and you know maybe you have a pickaxe here, and Jhin has nothing, he hasn't backed yet, and you have an item advantage. Braum can W to you, and then it's a shield, and that might be fine. But you first of all, you can't expect that of supports. So like your division, you're in like the bottom, I don't know, bottom 10% of players or something. So you can't. So the main thing is you just have to improve your fundamentals, and you can't expect a lot of your teammates because you can't get into that mindset because everyone in the games, both the people you're playing against and the people you're playing with, they're making a lot of mistakes and don't understand a lot of things. So that means you kind of have to be the one controlled one who's like playing better than everyone. And if you do that, you can very very reasonable have a 100% win rate. 90% win rate, 90% win rate. There are players that will have 95% win rates all the way up through Diamond. Not many, but like Apto is one. So it's just really good to stay consistent. Like I said, in like a coordinated game, higher elo game, or like competitive or something, that might be fine. But in this case, it's never good to take those types of risks. Plus, if you look at the minion waves, they have a lot of creeps, and minion damage is a very real thing. You're going to be taking probably from each creep on average about 20 damage a second. So if you count creeps hitting you, that's like 120 damage. Yeah, it's a lot of damage. You can left click on the creeps, and you can see that I think casters have 20 or 21 AD, and they attack 0.7 times a second, while melee creeps have like 15 or 16 or something, and they attack 1.3 times a second. That's why if you see people play the game, they usually don't just all out fight level 1. Do that, you're using auto attacks, which generate creep aggro, and you just die. So the aggressor loses. So yeah, I think. I mean, you can choose either one. So, for example, a lot of people prefer, and I prefer this. I've played a bunch of Tristana and stuff. Is to go like BF Sword into Shiv or BF Sword pickaxe into Shiv, and this depends on your back timings. So like when you can back or when like kill them, you shove the wave to the tower to deny them CS, and then you back. Let's say you have 1200 gold after BF Sword. It is better to buy Zeal than it is to buy pickaxe and dagger, right? So you just buy the Zeal, you go into static Shiv. Um, Really, very rarely are Berserker Greaves actually that good early. So like boots, for example, movement speed isn't always a stat that gives you a lot of utility. Because I mean the only thing, like, maybe you miss one less creep on each back or something, but then that's 20 gold, and for that to actually equal the boots, that's a lot of creeps. So the only utility it really has is when it's an open game. Are you familiar with the term, like from chess? Okay, so an open game meaning like if when the towers fall, or if there's like it's very um a lot can happen, so to speak. So like in this lane, for example, so if it's Janna versus Soraka in the support matchup, not a lot is gonna happen. If it's like Master Yi versus like Tahm Kench jungle or something weird, not a lot's gonna happen. There's not a lot of ganks. There's not really gonna be any fighting or anything like that. You don't need to worry about your mobility. Boots have pretty much no utility. Boots are the worst buy in lane on pretty much anyone, because they don't give you combat stats. They don't allow you to push the wave. They don't allow you to CS more easily under tower. They don't allow you to do more damage. They don't allow you to take less damage. So avoiding boots until you know they're necessary or there's nothing else you can really buy is pretty much what you want to do. Yeah, so you should prioritize like okay, so if you're against like Thresh or Blitzcrank, boots have a little bit more utility because it makes it easier to dodge things. Yeah. So if you can go like BF Sword, so in most lanes you can go BF Sword straight into Zeal. You can forego boots entirely. You can have BF Sword Static Shiv with no tier 1 boots. Like I said, if you back and you're just like, okay, so I'm again, so this lane you don't really need boots. You do have a Warwick, but you don't really need boots. You could just have BF Sword. You could go into Zeal. You could finish Shiv, and then you could get boots, because usually about then first towers are going to be falling. There are going to be people going to other lanes. Maybe you took your first tower. So right here I'm like in the VOD at like 8:45, and this is just kind of a mentality thing. Okay, actually Diana ganks. Probably get the kill, and you probably don't miss many CS. Okay, never mind, that's fine. I was thinking that it might not work. My bad. So one thing is use your ult a bit strangely there, though. The ult's mainly just an execute, or you can use it as like a self peel, but don't aim to do that. That's like a really situational. Like you don't need to do so. You don't need to do any special plays or anything really in this elo to succeed. So sometimes special plays are actually harder to do in this elo than they would be in a higher elo. And what I mean by that is a Thresh might be really good at Thresh, and he flash hooks, and Thresh hook has a delay. So usually Threshes have to predict their opponent's movement, unless there's no way they can dodge it. So a Thresh might flash hook, and they might think, oh, this person's going to dodge this way, and then in Bronze 5, the person doesn't even notice it. Or they're like game freezes or something, because they can't run the game or something like that. So that's actually a bad thing to do. But you don't need to do things. Like the other players aren't capable of doing anything special, so you don't have to do anything special. You just have to play like the base game better. So like you're 3-0 right now with 60 CS. Now you could have more CS. You should be aiming for like 70, 80, 10 minutes. That's not bad though. 60 isn't bad. I've played against, when I've played on Smurfs and stuff and ranked them up, I've played against like Silver 5, Silver 4 players who are gotten way less CS, like 20 at 10 minutes. So it's it's not, everyone's different in Bronze and Silver, but so that's fine. You're CSing fine. Like you're not bad at like the CSing mechanics. You're not like super. You haven't been playing the game for a long time, so that's fine. That's the most important thing, CSing. Because if you have more gold than someone, you don't actually have to be as good as them. So I think so. You buy double daggers. I think you're going into Shiv. Are you going BF Sword into Shiv? Okay, so double daggers. So one thing is it's a little bit awkward because if you buy dagger crit cloak, your zeal is 500 gold. Versus if you buy double dagger, it's 900 gold for the zeal and it's 500 for the other item, and the other item's not good to buy early, really. However, crit cloak is also, or not crit cloak, sorry, crit glove, brawler's glove. It's good to buy double dagger if that's not really the. It's not actually bad to buy double dagger because crit isn't stat effective. So if you just equate crit to AD, 10 AD is worth 350 gold versus 10 crit is worth 400 gold. Crit doesn't scale with your E. Your E doesn't scale with crit. So Brawler's Glove is basically just a really bad longsword or something. Is the way to look at it. So yeah, it's fine to buy Brawler's Glove sometimes, but generally speaking, it's not so great until after you. It's not, the crit isn't actually good until like after you have 2 items. Now Static Shiv. The thing about Static Shiv is it's good because of the lightning. So it's a base damage. It gives you a base number, and that's really good early game. And it wave clear. It scales really well. It's great for your E for taking towers. It just works really well. So yeah, I would say don't go Berserker Reaves. You can get tier 1 boots, no problem. You can go BF Sword, tier 1 boots, whatever. But generally speaking, just go BF Sword somewhere along the way by tier 1 boots, get Static Shiv, and then finish Infinity Edge. So yeah, worry about that as you get better. So there are certain wave manipulation techniques that don't really do what they should do, and you can do that without doing them, if that makes sense. So like you can just get kills and get a lot of CS and deny people like really easily. So freezing, which allows you to just get CS. So yeah, freezing, like it's good to learn freezing, but you don't really need to worry about that now. Especially not on Tristana, it's really difficult, nearly impossible to freeze there because of her E. Do you understand the concept of freezing? It's making sure your opponent always has an advantage in minions, which depends on where you are in the lane because where the waves meet. So like if you're closer to the tower, this is a pretty good fundamental thing to do. If your minions are even, yours and the opponent's, and you're closer to their tower, their wave is going to hit yours first, which means it's going to start pushing first, which means it's going to push into you, assuming you're not hitting it. Same thing is true for your side. And then obviously there's with a 1 minion advantage at some points in the lane, it will push with that in mind. Some points it won't. So on and so forth. It's like you have good APM. You're like playing this mechanically well. The number one suggestion I have is just unlocking the camera and getting used to that because it just makes you so much more aware. Yep. So you basically, I mean, you should just like 14-15 game timer or 13-50. You should just back. This is a bit of a weird place to back because they could have it warded. I don't know if you're in the general same spot, but yeah, it's a little bit of a weird place to. So they actually back, so you can just shove it. So you understand the fundamentals of like, if they back, you want to shove it into tower, so you can deny them those creeps. Yep. Another thing is if you want to back, so if you have 1300 gold, so this is something. So like, most ADCs have similar item builds. However, some ADCs will build like long swords early. So like if Jin's going for Youmu's, or if it's a Lucian going for Bork, something like that. Kind of knowing what your opponent wants to buy and how much it is. So for example, Lucian, if he's going to buy, he wants to buy on 350, 700. Potentially he can buy on 1250, he can buy on 1000, he can buy on 300, buy on 1500. But knowing those numbers and knowing, okay, like if you kill him and he has 200 gold, you know he's just there's nothing you can do. If he has 200 gold and you're able to go get a pickaxe or something soon, that's it. That should just be the lane because you have 25 AD on him. But another thing is knowing that if you can back and get an item and he can't because you have a CS advantage, so you're thinking, okay, instead of sitting on just Doran's, so I don't have a real item advantage, the CS advantage is just a number, just gold I have in my inventory. I can take that gold and I can actually turn it into something. I can invest it into an item and then I can punch. So knowing like he can't back, the time to back when you're just going to be the one who backs first. You can also do this against certain champions that have no wave clear. Vayne, the time to back is just when the cannon wave is coming into the lane. And the way to know that is just look at your wave that's like leaving the next. If it's a cannon wave, theirs is too. It's at the same exact spot. And the reason that is because it takes longer to kill a cannon wave. It's an additional cannon minion. And when the cannon wave gets to the tower will hit a melee minion. It takes 3 hits, assuming it hasn't been damaged. And then the tower will start hitting the cannon minion, which will take 8 tower shots to kill. You lose way less gold in the same, in the same time as you're traveling back to lane. Yeah. No, in like in LCS and really high tier games, like a 5-10 CS lead can be huge. Yeah, because it's not even just an item lead. So even if it doesn't become a longsword, what it can become is, hey, I have 10 CS more than you. I can just back whenever I want. I can back on this item, and then you might have to stay in lane to get your item, and then I can punish you with my item lead. And that's, it depends on the matchup too. So like mid top lane, there's a lot of different builds that a lot of different champions do, so that's a little bit more dynamic. But for ADC, it's a lot more simple, the whole buy timing thing. Also knowing if you're the one who's going to back, knowing what their gold is at. So basically the way you can do it is tally up your CS, so it's about 20 gold per minion on average, and then just subtract that from your gold. So like if you have 20 CS, that would be 400 gold. So if you, I don't actually know the ambient gold, what that would be at a normal time at all. But if you had like 600 gold, you would know that if they have 10 CS, they would have probably about 400 because they're missing 200 gold from what you have. So just knowing that, now you don't really need to focus on that too much. Honestly, you could just kind of play your own gameplay single player without worrying about that, because the enemy's always going to make mistakes. They're always going to go for inefficient builds. You're going to have bad runes a lot of the time, stuff like that. And that's not. Yeah, like the bad runes, for example. Usually, once you get to like mid-high silver, is where people start consistently having reasonable runes. Something you can do actually is you can go on op.gg as you're in the loading screen or something. You can just look at their rune pages. It shows them over on the right and their masteries, and see if they're wrong. And if you know why they're wrong, and you know how to exploit them, then there you go, right? So if the ADC doesn't have armor or something weird, you know, oh, I can step up and I can auto them. Oh, I didn't actually check runes, so I was gonna do that just before, but I completely spaced it. So you have 2 rune pages because you're newer. You don't really have the IP for all that. Are these? Do you have tier 2 runes? Yep. Okay. Yep. So okay, so you're actually, so you do have some tier 3 runes. So yeah, you should. The main thing is just investing in tier 3 runes because it just just gives you more stats. As for the masteries, that's something that can be corrected immediately. Yeah, a lot of it's just like it's just mechanical consistency, and it doesn't really come quick because there's a lot of variance in League, right? You're familiar with CS:GO. CS:GO, a lot of it's just crosshair positioning and that type of thing. So that's static. Where are they? My crosshair where they should be, that type of thing. So it's very universal. You can play 100 games and you get 100 games of experience. Whereas League, you're playing against a different champion, playing potentially as a different champion, which is something to avoid because the same bad thing about muscle memory. It's like playing with a different sensitivity each game. Uh, so yeah, so that's good that you're basically just playing one champion. So let's look Tristana. So one thing is it's slightly better to take Warlords on Tristana. Warlords is really good, but other than that, your mastery page is completely fine. So actually, Lucian should be taking Fervor, and Tristana should be taking Warlords. Is the only thing. Because Lucian's passive just allows him to stack it really fast, while Tristana benefits because she goes a crit build. So basically, what happens is Warlords charges with the same exact thing that Kirche Shard, or I don't know how you say that, but that item, the red thing that goes into Shiv, that Shiv and Rapid Fire all charge during the same thing. So you get Shiv and Rapid Fire and Warlords, and it makes it faster. So you get like triple the benefit from attacking and moving. I don't know if that's how it works, but I imagine, because I don't know if it's intended, but you go Infinity Edge, Shiv, Rapid Fire, you have Warlords, it stacks really fast. Every time you auto with 100, you get the Shiv, you have 70% crit, so it crits a lot, you have the Rapid Fire range, and you get a Warlords proc, so you get the movement speed and you get the health back. So it's a really... Yep, so this game you're still 3-2, so one thing is like you start dying, let me look. It doesn't really seem so. A lot of players will think like, oh, I only died once or twice that game. No matter what elo, a lot of players will think, oh, I only died once or twice that game. I shouldn't be, or that wasn't the reason I lost. That wouldn't have made the difference. But it really, really makes a difference because if you don't die, that means you get more CS. That means maybe you get a kill. That means they get less gold. That means they get less CS. It translates to a lot. That could be you come into a fight and it as big as like half of an item lead or half of an item difference, or you have summoners, something like that, right? And that can be really huge, and that can be the entire difference a lot of times. So the main thing is just not dying. So you die to like Malphite ult, and again, you're not like super experienced with the game, so it's not really a big deal. But like just getting used to like what Malphite ult is. So it's a lot of ADC, and this is true for any role, but ADC is like 90% just mechanics. So just playing a lot of games and getting better at mechanically, trying to push yourself, trying to learn how to play around things. So for example, Malphite, you don't have flash, so if he presses R on you, and you're not like mid jumps going somewhere, pretty much going to hit you. Pretty close to aim, very fast. So you just have to respect that. If you stay out of Jin's range or farther away, Malphite ults you, you're up in the air, Jin isn't hitting you, so it's fine, and then you can jump away, that type of thing. Malphite doesn't have any CC afterwards. Do you know like what all the champions and all their abilities do and all that? Yep. 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 So one thing that's really good, and you don't know all the abilities and all that, so you can look at it two ways. So the more difficult, tedious, learning faster type of way is looking them up on the wiki, like the lane you're against or something. Champions up on the wiki and reading the ability, and obviously that will teach you faster because like you'll learn it, and then oh, that ability looks like what I just read, so I can then infer that it does this much damage, has this much range, has this much of a cooldown. Knowing cooldowns is one of the most important things. Even if you don't know the exact damage, if you have a feeling for the damage, if you know, okay, it does this much to my health bar, which is even I couldn't tell you the exact damage that a lot of abilities do at a certain level, but I would know if they would kill me from a certain health just because I've played a lot of games. Yes, foresight. So yeah, knowing damage foresight, but also cooldowns, because cooldowns are really important. If you're against an Ezreal and Ezreal Qs, knowing if when Ezreal's on cooldown, it means, oh, Ezreal can't do anything. Mid lane, that's really important because they're casters, they don't have AD, so their auto attacks aren't significant, but their spells are. So yeah, yep, he's a really, really good resource for sure. But watching his videos is really, really good. Um, so here, like, what you do actually, you have like a good idea, and you kind of push yourself. So I would say it's kind of dangerous, but at the same time, so I don't. I'm assuming you didn't intend this because he ended up ulting after you jump. But at 18:30, um, there's a 2v2, and you jump in based on Malphite's positioning. Malphite ends up ulting like as your mid jump, misses you. And I know you didn't intend that because you jumped after you jumped, but you have this thought like, okay, the front line is on my front line, or not really front line. The tank is on my tank. I'm gonna jump back and I'm gonna just hit Jhin. And now you could have played this a little bit mechanically better. It's the only thing. So you could have moved up with your clicks. There's no reason not to go into Jhin. So if you move up, you get closer to Braum. Malphite can't follow you because for him to move at you, so if he's bad right now, he's doing is he's right clicking. He's not right clicking the ground. He's not direct input or DIing. He's just right clicking you. So if you move up, and this is true even if he's not right clicking you, he can't walk through the creeps because he'll get minion blocked. Walk around and you have a straight path to Jhin. So if you walk right, you're just making it an easier path for him. And this doesn't always apply, like the whole minion blocking thing. And then you end up doing a lot of damage to Jhin. So one thing is if you're moving straight up, you could have been autoing Jhin more. And you might have gotten another couple autos on him. And you also have flash. So I think right here, like after you get that last auto and he flashes, you have the flash. Flash is you. So you should just be moving back, I think. At that point, you can just be moving back, autoing Malphite. So if you were moving back, autoing Malphite, you wouldn't be getting fourth autoed and queued by Jhin right here. So you'd be a lot healthier and it'd be fine. But I would, yeah, getting a flash is because that means the next time you go for that 2v2, not only is he lower in this instance, next time you go for that 2v2, he can't flash away. So it's it's 5 minutes that you have to do that. So maybe not now, maybe not even in 4 minutes, but in 4.5 minutes, when he doesn't have flash, well, he's dead. Something that Korean solo queue does really, really good that even NA like Challenger doesn't do super well is they will, if someone flashes, if someone's forced to flash in lane, just in the 2v2 or the 1v1 or whatever, they will punish that person. They don't care if they're 0-5. They'll go and they will 3-man them and they will kill them. Even just because they don't have their flash, because they don't have their flash up, because that's a really, really important thing. Yep. That's because, well, basically, like, if someone's not playing efficiently or they're not playing well, like, they're really only using their champion to like 70%. So to use a real example, like when I first got level 30 and I play ranked, I just decided I was gonna play Nocturne jungle every game. And when I first played Nocturne, I was really bad. I got placed in Bronze 5. And yeah, I got placed in Bronze 5 and I was playing Nocturne, and his W just wasn't intuitive to me. His W is a spell shield. So I would just not use his W ever. And that is the literal definition of of using like 75% of a champion kit. And in the same way, now, even if every single player on the enemy team and every player on your team knows what their spells do and they use them, they're not using them well. They're not animation canceling, they're not knowing when to use them, they're using them when they shouldn't be, that type of thing. So they're not using the full champion's kit. And to that way, even if you have a gold lead, if you're using 80%, if you're using 60% of your champion's kit and the opponent's using 90% of their champion's kit or something in just a given instance, because it's really inconsistent and imperfect and all that, it doesn't matter that you have 50% more gold than, you know? So that's why it's all over the place and people don't know what to do. So thing is, like, basically, okay, so this is like a flowchart thing. So like I said, ADC is mostly mechanics. There's not a lot of macro. There's not a lot of like strategy or anything. Well, nothing really has strategy at bronze. Like, don't get into this like mindset like there's strategy and you have to worry about this and you have to kind of muddle in. Is that even a word? I don't know. Don't mess in the chaos, sort of. Just kind of play controlled. So you should just be, if you lose the first outer tower, well, the first goal is to not lose that because you always win lane. If you lose the first outer tower, basically you're thinking the objective is the enemy outer tower. If they go mid, I get the outer tower. If they stay here, they have a lead and they're just deciding to continue laning. And also, if they push the wave in, now it's like way on your side of the map, so they're really vulnerable. They can't just walk back to their tower if you 2v2, and your jungler, it's way easier for your jungler to get involved than their jungler. So if you lose your outer tower first, obviously don't aim to do that. However, that is basically the thought process. If you take their outer tower first, basically you just want to shove the wave and don't stay bot. Usually what you do is you're going to go to the lane with the least wave clear. And obviously, like, you don't know all the champion's abilities and stuff, but generally speaking, like, a lot of times that's top, but if they have like a melee mid, that a lot of times that's true. So this game they have Talia. Talia has really good wave clear. They have a Mundo. Mundo has no wave clear. Everything is a single target. So, well, he has a little bit of AoE, but like, he doesn't have wave clear. So you would go top lane. You would take the outer tower because he can't clear the minions, and you're Tristana with your E. And you would take the tower, you'd get that lead, and then you could go mid. And usually what you do is you want to take the tower, and you're going to be always looking at bot lane. So as soon as you see bot lane coming back in, because when you take the tower, you're going to push it. It's going to meet outside the tower. So for example, this is a perfect example at like 2250. A lot of stuff's going on, but the wave is outside their bot tower, their inner tower. When it's like that, their minions are going to meet it first, which means that it's going to push to you. That's what you want. It's going to slowly push to you. It's going to kill your creeps slowly because it's just minions hitting minions. Then it's going to push up a little bit, and it's going to be like towards the middle of the lane. And then when it's there, you want to be heading like on your way bot. That's your priority. I want to go there. You can go a little bit later, but someone on your team might go, or the jungler might pick it up or something. And it's, as the ADC, it's fine to be a little bit selfish with gold. You scale the hardest gold-wise out of any champion because you're auto attack based, and there are like 5 stats that scale off of each other and scale off your auto attacks. There's nothing really, no one else has that, so you can be selfish with the gold. As soon as you see that wave, you should be going to it or thinking, how can I get that? Same is true for any kill. Anytime you get a kill, anytime you get an objective, think, how can I get the most gold on the map? Don't go running around with your team doing whatever they feel like. It's fine to V-ping them, to danger ping them, and to say, no, I know this is wrong, if you're sure the situation's wrong. And that obviously just comes with games. Like, a lot of the stuff I can't really tell you how to just all of a sudden be better. It just comes to a lot of games because you have to experience all the scenarios. Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. So one thing I would recommend is like he has some ADC coaching sessions, and he doesn't like coaching ADC because he finds ADC like there's not as much to talk about on like a really deep level. So he doesn't really like coaching ADC, but he does have some ADC sessions where basically he goes over the ABCs, which is basically what I'm telling you. It's you know, push the wave in. When the wave's coming to you, you get it. And when you want to push the wave, or the way you push the wave when both the outer towers are down bot lane, is you push it to the middle of the lane and then one past the middle of the lane, and it will go to that position where it's going to slow push back to you. Or someone's going to go there, they're going to clear it, and it's going to push to you faster. Either way, the wave comes right back to you. There are certain ways you can push it if you don't know how to push the wave, where it will like slow push to them, and that means it will take forever to get to you, and it gives them a big wave, and that's not optimal. In like high tier games or competitive, that can be good because you can set it up so 4 minions crash on their tower when you're on the other side of the map. But that's not really, you know, that's not the goal here. The goal is just to get them LCS. So I think like this bot wave's going on. There's a bot wave and a top wave at like 25-minute in game. It's at 4:45. In this scenario, no, 24:45. There's like Rammus and Teemo aren't there. You don't need to defend the mid outer. So like mid outer is an objective, but it's not just an objective. That it doesn't really mean anything, right? So you just got to think. So if you really want to get to why this stuff is what it is, so what is the outer tower? It's a global gold. It gives you vision. It keeps the minion waves out of a certain part mid lane, which also gives you vision, apparently. But what it does is it's actually the least safe. So if you look at the distance between the towers, so the outer towers are farthest from each other, the inner towers are closer, the inhibitor towers are really close, the Nexus towers are almost touching each other. So to defend multiple objectives, it gets easier and easier the more you get pushed in. So outer towers, as the game goes on, as people accumulate firepower, because like level 1, you could send all 5 people mid, they won't just get the tower. At this point in the game, 26 minutes in, 5 people mid, if no one's there, the tower's just gone. They have the firepower to take it, and they also have the firepower to dive you. They have the firepower to poke you, they have the firepower to wave clear. So you have to understand that like this tower doesn't actually mean a lot. So you don't need to worry about the outer tower 26 minutes in. Now obviously, if you can defend it, it's global gold, it gives you vision, that type of thing. And they're going to be extending and putting resources into it to try to get it. So if you can capitalize off of that, you know, that's fine. But you don't need to defend that. You should be thinking about getting a wave. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no. So yeah, people don't really know. So this isn't like you won't really encounter anything until you get into like plat. Sometimes you'll see people they'll actually complain and flame and rage about things that are kind of valid. Like, oh, jungler, you just took XP from like 5 minions. Yeah, I'm gonna go AFK, and it's like, oh, okay, jungler did do something minorly annoying. You shouldn't AFK off of it, but you know, you kind of understand the game. People in this elo, they don't understand the game at all. People will do something completely proper, they'll get mad about it because they're thinking, I'm in this really bad elo. That's not how. That doesn't reflect my image of myself, because the whole like natural god complex that people have. You know, people don't want something's wrong. That happens in League. It's a 5-person game. You invest a lot of emotion into it because the games are a long time. Not as long as CS:GO, obviously, but like because of that, people find it really difficult to blame themselves for a loss. Also, it's a strategy thing, so it's really difficult to understand your own flaws. People like to think of it as a strategy game rather than at this level. It's really just mechanics, the basics. So this is fine what you guys are doing. So it's fine to like go with your teams when you know it's correct, when you know there's a good chance of success. And again, this is really impossible. Some of the stuff I'm saying it's really impossible until you play a bunch of games to learn it. So you can't possibly know the chance of success 2v2 if you don't know who wins the 2v2, if you don't know what the abilities do, right? So you can watch games, you can watch things about certain champions, you can look on the wiki, and you can play the game, obviously, and that's all you can really do. So one thing I would say in your build's mostly good. We talked about the early building stuff, how boots are inefficient, how you know, the build path, and then getting a blue trinket usually. Yeah. It's not as important because people's map awareness aren't just isn't good. It's just a skill people don't really have as good. Obviously, it's a fundamental. So your team isn't really going to benefit from it as much. But if you're like in lane, like if you're on blue side where you are, and you're ganked from the tri-bush, you can get ganked from the river. So yeah, I can't tell you wards aren't important. They give you information, right? So yeah, wards are definitely important. As for control wards are basically it's just the counter sort of to wards. So basically, what you're doing with a control ward is you're thinking, where do I not want them to have wards? So you can use it as a ward because it's permanent, but you also want it in a place where they won't be able to take it. So if you're winning lane and you put it in your tri-bush, they shouldn't be able to just walk up and take it because you would normally kill them because they're walking towards you, right? So if you do that and you put it in your tri-bush and defend that area, it's called a control ward because you should have control of the area where you're placing it. And also, what it does is they can't ward there, so it allows your Rammus to just come gank. They would normally want to ward there because that's where they think that Rammus would be coming down to gank, path to jungle. So that's generally the way you use them. You put them in a path where your jungler would gank and where you think they would ward, and also where you want vision. Don't overbuy them. If you have the spare gold, you can buy one. That's fine, but don't overbuy them. Don't buy them on every back. That type of thing. Buy once every once in a while. So another skill is like basic tracking junglers. You don't have to track them super complex, but knowing things like did bot lane leash or not based on when they got to lane. So basically, if they're in lane when you're leashing, like as you're walking down, they didn't leash. The jungler didn't start there. They started red or wraiths. Same thing is true for top lane. If top lane goes into lane late, then they start at top side, which means you could get ganked at about 3:10, 3:15. It's the normal time a jungler will do the third camp and then come gank you. So knowing that's important. Some junglers are different, but just basically 3:10, 3:15 is good to keep in mind. So that's when you usually want a ward to check you don't die to the gank. Yeah, so it's mostly just like your farm falls off mid game, and this isn't like a bronze 5 thing. This is true all the way up through silver and even gold. People do not know you in the mid game. Yeah. So late game it can drop off depending on the way the game is going. If you watch LCS games, for example, and solo queue isn't LCS, obviously, but okay, a better example, if you watch Apto's a mid lane player for the most part, but it's another role. Apto will always go for 10 CS a minute. For that because he's trying to funnel the most resources into him so he can impact the game the most. And that's the mentality to have in low elo. It's the same way like elo boosters play. Elo booster try to play this game kind of single player. So that's just the proper mentality to have to win low elo consistently. And what I was saying about the like probability thing, you kind of have to think about it like poker. Like sometimes you go into a scenario and it's a 2v2, and you might win 60% of the time. So for example, you have a Lee Sin, you're level 6, and you think, okay, if that Lee Sin insects him to me, then we win the 2v2. Well, that means that's only going to work like 5% of the time. So you don't go into the 2v2, right? So things like that. Now, insects are really basic. That's one people aren't good at. People aren't good at Lee Sin. Lorelos, people aren't good at Lee Sin in Diamond 4. But basically, knowing what to expect to your teammates, which is almost nothing. So, I would say don't usually go into something unless you can do it 90% yourself. And just, go for the consistent thing. So if you go into a 2v2 and you're not sure you can do it yourself, now it's fine to go into it if you think you might be able to, and then you'll learn that you can't do that to that champion, or you can. And even if you shouldn't, so sometimes you'll do something and it will work out fine, and then it won't work out because it shouldn't have, and just some freak accident happened. A skill shot landed that wasn't supposed to, they missed skill shots, that type of thing. But then you kind of have to understand, like, when something goes wrong, why did it go wrong? When something goes right, should it have gone right? What would have happened if they hit the skill shot? What would have happened if my teammate missed the skill shot, right? So you have to be able to like go into a little bit more of a dynamic, how do you say, like self analysis, when you make decisions and you go for things. Now again, it's mostly mechanical, and most of the decision stuff, like mechanics, involve awareness of damage foresight and things like that. So damage foresight also involves like if an Ezreal never hits Qs in this elo, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be aware of Ezreal's damage with Q. So if an Ezreal's always missing Q, you should know, okay, if that Ezreal hits Q this one time by some freak accident, then he'll do this much damage. So, so I think that's really important, and not just thinking that if something works, it's good. If something doesn't work, it's bad, that type of thing. You can keep doing it if it works, because there's a lot of bad things that work in this elo that you can do. Like elo boosters do some really, really bad stuff. that end up working for them. People don't know how to respond to it, and people make mistakes that allow it to be possible, and then so basically do that until you can't. So if you climb to gold 5 doing something that you shouldn't be able to do because it's just a bad thing, but the players can't react to it, and then all of a sudden you can't do it anymore, you can be aware that it's bad, right? So that's fine. But yeah, the 100% the main thing is just being more aware by unlocking the camera, CSing, always keeping up to CS. Oh, if you see a side wave pushing into you, a big side wave, always be looking at the map for that. Go to it. Yeah. So yeah, map awareness is another fundamental, and you can get map awareness by just forcing yourself to look. If that's difficult, if you find yourself forgetting or not being able to focus on that, you can set like a timer. I know that helps a lot of players trying to learn map awareness. You set a timer so it goes off like every 4 seconds. It's really annoying. Every 4 seconds, you think, wow, that's annoying. So you look at your map, um, and that just kind of drills it into you. There's another way. Like I know back in season 3, 2013, some Korean professional players use this game that basically it's called multitask. You do like one thing, and then after you get like 30 seconds into the game, it introduces a second thing, and you have to look back and forth to check the status to see if you have to do something. So it just kind of it trains your eye to go from spot to spot to spot to spot really really fast. So it's like a skill that you would get if you played a bunch of StarCraft or something. So you have to, they're hitting macros constant, looking different things. So you can do it one of those two ways, or you can just play games and force yourself to do it, which is the most difficult, but usually the most productive way because it's the actual thing you need to be getting better at, that type of thing. Yeah, I'd say mostly it's just I can't really tell you a lot of things if you don't know the abilities of the champions and what they do, which you can only learn by playing games or looking up on the wiki when you're going into the game. It's fine. So you end up winning the game. The damage you do isn't bad. One teammate did, I think, is the Diana did more damage, but I don't think the play was that bad. I would assume there's like considering you're new, I would assume like the play so like the win rate you have on Tristana isn't that great. I don't think the sample size is 49 games. It's not. Yeah, there's a lot of variance in because just just a lot of fears. So one thing I noticed, you play Annie, so you Q ADC mid. Okay, yeah, you play Annie. That's good. So I see like yeah, casting is a little bit more complex. He involves like a lot of different things. Like something Kassadin does that's really important. So if you watch Apto, very very flip push, sort of macro oriented in the way he applies pressure. Because of the nature of Kassadin, he's also a very selfish champion, like a lot of ADCs. I don't think Kassadin is the worst thing, but he doesn't seem difficult, but he is a little bit more difficult than a lot of people assume. So I think Annie's really good. Annie's like the best champion when it comes to improving, especially mid lane, because of how she's like one of the most simple champions when it comes to what you're doing, what your role is, and how you do it. So that's really good at muscle memory. So yeah, you're playing a bunch of Tristana. You're basically just playing a few champions. That's really good. It's fine if you're like bronze 4, bronze 5 when you're new. There are players in bronze 4, bronze 5, bronze 3 who have like 800 games and have been playing for. Yeah. So yeah, there is a lot of variance. So understanding when it's variance. So for example, someone DCs on your team, you can usually win a 4v5 in low bronze. Like it's fine, but that is negative variance. That's out of your control. You're at a disadvantage. It's out of your control. So understanding that's negative variance and not tilting off that, not being like, oh, I can't do anything, is really valuable. And also understanding positive variance. You get some Smurf on your team or someone with a 90% win rate, or that might not happen here because Smurfs usually they place higher, so they're not really in like bronze 5 or anything. But yeah, I think, and you play Lucian, your secondary ADC. Yep. So the only other thing is like you do some weird builds sometimes in your games. So I saw like a ways back, like 12, 13 days ago on Tristana. So you build Rune on some games. You're building like you built like Shiv and Rapid Fire without an Infinity Edge. Was that like before you really got like acquainted with proper builds? Yeah, you have a yeah. Yeah. Was that recent? Yeah. So don't worry about that. So like the thing about builds is like there are a lot of aspects to items and how cheap they are and how cheap the components are, and they don't really exist or matter until you CS well and you know how to trade well. So like the build inefficiencies, like if a challenger player came into bronze, they could win a lot of games just playing like AP Tristan or something, and no one is going to tell you AP Tristan is a good like that's a good way to build Tristan. No one's gonna. Yeah, they know how to use the stats. So once you learn how to use the stats, so one thing is don't build Essence Reaver on Tristana. Tristana, like there's not a lot of differences. So I mean, there are a few items you could go different, but it doesn't really matter. Basically, you're getting IE, Static Shiv, Rapid Fire, Berserker Greaves, and then your last two items usually are going to um, Mortal Reminder or a Lord Dominic's. They're both armor items. They're both for like bonus armor pen. Do you know how armor works in the game? It's a little bit complex, and a lot of people don't understand how it works that wise. Okay, so basically, you have an armor stat, and basically it's a percentage reduction. And the way it works is it gives like decaying values. So the way you find out how much armor is doing is you add it to. I'm trying to remember. So you add it to your health. So you take. So if you have 50 armor, you take 50% of your health. You add it to your health, and then the percentage that that health is of that number is how much reduction you're getting. 50. If you have 1,000 health, 50 would be 500 health. So you add that, it's 1,500. 500 is a third of 1,500, which means you get 33%. Which if you mouse over when you have 50 armor, you're getting 33% damage reduction. Which also means 100 is 50%. So if you notice, the first 50 gives you 33%. The second 50 gives you 16%. Um, the next 100 will give you even less. It will go from being 50% to like actually it's the same. It's like 66%. So it'll give you 60% again. And it's just decaying returns. Now so in the same way, if someone has 100 armor, they're reducing your damage by 50%, which is a lot. So a lot of times, if you're against like a Malphite or a tank or anything like that who has armor, it's really valuable to have a Lord Dominix or a Mortal Reminder. Lord Dominix gives you bonus damage if they have more bonus health than you, pretty much always because you don't build bonus health. Um, but some champions won't have bonus health, so some items don't give bonus health. A lot of champions don't build items that have health. So Lord Dominix is, I would say, less than half the time good. I think Mortal Reminder is better. Mortal Reminder does a healing debuff. So you could honestly build Mortal Reminder like every game. Someone's always going to have some healing, some lifesteal. It even affects regen. And then the other item would be like BT or Bork, and they're pretty close. You can do either one. So BT is technically it's better against towers. It's better against trying to think of like scenario. So it's better against towers. It's a better defensive item. It's more lifesteal and it gives you a shield, which is nice sometimes. And then the Bork is a little bit more DPS efficient because of the percentage health damage and also the active as well as like the attack speed plus the AD. Um, but I would just say you can go BT every game, not a big deal. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, Bloodthirster. Sorry, you're lagging. I heard what you're saying. Um, so yeah, I would just focus on those things. Do the same build. So like you're just starting to do it now, doing the same build and all that type of stuff. So you can't expect to be good, and you don't. You understand that you need to improve, and it takes type of thing. So that's fine. So basically, keep doing what you're doing. Have the mindset to always get CS. Don't do anything too risky in lane. Your positioning in lane. The reason you're in lane is just to get farm. Trading, getting kills, that is secondary. That's off of them making mistakes. So yeah, basically stick with it, and I can, if you add me on League, my ID is the same thing as my coaching ID. I can answer any questions you have in the future. I'll be glad to do that. So yep, that's pretty much about it. Unless you have any other specific questions. Sorry, you're kind of cutting out here. If it's all right, I'm gonna end the call and then we start it again. See if that's all right. Okay.